Hey everyone, welcome back to Marriage is Hard But Worth It, where we have conversations about marriage, faith, and everything in between. I'm Kaylyn.
And I'm Steve. Today's episode hits home for a lot of couples. We're talking about how to talk about your spouse to others. Because the words you speak outside your home can either protect your marriage or slowly damage it.
Exactly. You know, what we say about our spouse to our friends, our family, our coworkers, it matters more than you think it does, because you can't build intimacy with your spouse at home if you're tearing them out in public.
Absolutely. We brought this verse up last week, but it is applicable to this week as well. Proverbs 18:21, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit.
And when we're talking about that, it means that, you can speak life into your marriage or you can kill it, because once you start talking negatively about your husband or your wife to your friends or to even your family, you're planting these itty bitty seeds, and, God tells us to go out and plant seeds, but he doesn't tell you to plant those negative seeds.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's super easy to go, oh, I'm just venting to this person, or, oh, it's not going to go anywhere. But the honest part about it is the second you put it into the universe, it's out there and you can't take it back.
Exactly. And, and with the way the world works sometimes, like speaking negatively about your spouse to your friends, now they're going to look at your spouse like, okay, everything that he or she is doing right, well, they're not going to focus on that anymore. They're going to focus on the negative,
And those are usually the first people that, when somebody is trying to talk good about you as a couple, they're the first people that will say, well, it appears that way, but if you only knew what I know.
Yeah. And I know we're both guilty of thinking we're venting, and we'll get to it here in a little bit, but there is a difference between venting and seeking out wisdom.
Yes.
It's all about who you talk to and how you say it.
Correct.
I'm guilty of it. I mean, going to your mom, and because I don't get me wrong, I love my mother-in-law, and she is who I go to vent to more than I do my mom, but sometimes it's a little more than what it should be. It's me venting and not asking for guidance.
Yeah. Well, and Ephesians 4:29 reminds us to not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what's helpful for building others up according to their needs.
That's exactly right. Like I said, when I go to vent, I'm not going to vent instead of coming to you and be like, hey, here's what I need from you, or here's what we need to work on, or here's and vice versa. I mean,
going to your spouse as opposed to somebody else, that it actually gives it the opportunity to be constructive. Something positive can actually come out of that. When you go to somebody else, there's nothing positive that's going to come out of that at all.
Depends on what it is, but for the most part, yeah, you're going to have that negativity. Because I know, like, when I go to your mom to vent about something, she'll talk to you about it, and then now you're mad because your mom's coming to you and not me, and so I mean that's something that I know I have to work on. And don't get me wrong, I'm not always venting to your mom about it. There are I do have good things, because I'll be venting. I said, in my venting, I'll be like, he's doing XYZ, but he does do this right, or he does do this, or he attempts to do this. So it's not all completely negative that I talk,
And believe it or not, I'm actually fairly good at this subject. Like, I'm not going to say I'm perfect and I never talk ill about you, because I'm definitely not a saint. I am definitely a sinner. But it is very, very rare that I speak poorly to you, to anybody.
Yeah. and that's something that I know I have to work on, because when I was headed down that road of wanting to be done, I made the mistake of going to your ex-wife, and let me tell you, Kelly, we love you. But I know she
didn't necessarily
she wasn't like
the best intentions.
Yeah, and it wasn't that she was speaking negatively, but she wasn't being like, hey, you guys need to go work on it. It was, well, he did that in our marriage too, and then it became comparing marriages.
And then it became, well, it's a shame you can't use the same attorney we use because he doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah, so there wasn't. So when you go to talk to other people about your spouse, you also need to make sure that you have the group of people around you who are going to be like, hold up, stop having that conversation. This isn't a conversation we need to be having. And if we are going to have this conversation, here's what you need to do, instead of encouraging you to break that covenant that you created with God. Because when you're speaking negatively too, you're not honoring your marriage. You're not honoring that covenant. You're not being loyal to that person anymore. And you want your friends and family to not only see that your marriage is working from the outside, but you need them to know that your marriage is working.
Exactly. When you talk about your spouse negatively, it gives others the permission to do the same thing, and vent their frustration. It'll show their frustrations instead of their character. And I mean, it only damages not only your spouse's reputation, but your reputation and your reputation as a couple.
And how they witness it. Because, and like you said earlier, when people say they seem like a great couple, well, if you only knew what I knew, that we have that. I'm not gonna lie. Some of our friends, they don't look at us like we're what we are because of what's been said, And like I said, like we talked about earlier, there's a difference between venting and seeking wisdom, and we know every couple has their issues, and it's okay to seek that outside advice or that outside counseling, because sometimes we can't fix it.
Right. But you do have to you have to do your due diligence. You have to vet these people before you decide who you're going to go to. Because if you're going to somebody to seek wisdom to help improve your standing as a couple, but who you're going to doesn't have a care about your confidentiality as a couple, that can destroy everything faster than you destroying it yourself.
Exactly. Proverbs 11:14 tells us, where there is no guidance, the people fall, but in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. So it's okay to talk to, your pastor or a mentor or a counselor, but you need to make sure that they're going to point you back to your covenant, back to Christ, but again, I've fallen privy to this of gossiping to your mom or my coworkers, and there's nothing that comes there but, oh, well, I'm sorry to hear your marriage isn't working, and they don't give any type of guidance of, your mom does.
Yeah, I mean,
your mom tries. We don't always heed what she tells us.
No, not always.
But I know your mom does try to push us back.
And that's that's one of those people that I wouldn't mind necessarily going to as a couple to talk about things, just because I know that she means well and she's going to point us in the right direction. However, there's some things that she definitely doesn't need to know about. Correct. That doesn't need to be spoken to my mother.
Yeah. I get that there. And, and with talking to your pastor, I mean, the congregation that we were members of before, that one was a little hard because of the history that we have with that pastor.
Yeah, we had known him since we were in high school. We were friends with him before he ever even started doing that. So it was kind of hard to share intimate details.
And not that he wouldn't have guided us back to Christ, because he very much so would have.
Oh, absolutely. It was just it wouldn't have been comfortable for us, just because we're like, yo, homie.
Because we have that
we had that previous friendship with him, and
I know now that if we have issues, that we can't fix, or, we come together and dive into the Bible about it. My brain didn't want to work. I know we can go to Tim and Renelle and be like, hey, we need help with this. Like, we can't figure this out, and we can do it together. We can do it separately. We can do both. But I know, and I have the confidence that, Tim and Renelle will guide us in the direction that we need to go to fix this.
Well, and that's the other thing about, like you said, Tim and Renelle, is we started our relationship with them in their home group.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know them before we started going to church. And then when they branched off and started their own church, as opposed to going to the one we had previously went, it was a pretty easy, seamless transition to just go over there with them, as opposed to trying to go back to where we were, knowing the things we knew going back.
Yeah. And, we're not big on being in the big mega churches. I know we had talked about going to another congregation, and, we had set forth this, okay, let's go back to the congregation we were at. Let's try Jonesburg Christian. Let's try,
Two Rivers.
And
and we would have even tried Elevation
if we could have found one.
If we could have found one closer than a 50-minute drive.
Yep. But just knowing that, they were there and that we could go to them for guidance, played a big part in that. And, part of the goal of protecting your marriage and its privacy and dignity is being, honest with each other when it comes to those struggles. And making sure that, when we talk about our struggles to others, we're not exposing the flaws that each other has.
Correct. And there's some practical ways to make sure your words build your marriage, not break it. Mm-hmm. We talked about this last week. Pause before you speak.
Yeah.
We made the joke last week that, when in the middle of an argument, I'm sitting here trying to build my argument like a defense attorney, trying to defend my innocence. But
or the lack thereof.
When you're sitting there doing that, you're preoccupied with your response. You're not listening to what's coming to you, and you're already preparing your response. That doesn't do you any good. You have to pause, seek your heart, really understand the words that are coming at you, and how to reply to that in a way that builds the conversation versus tearing it down.
And when you're talking about your spouse to other people, stop and think, like, would I talk to my spouse this way? Would I tell them that he's a piece of crap or she's a piece of crap, or, oh my God, he or she can't do anything right? Like, is that how you would want to talk to your spouse? Because that's, in our marriage, you're called to build each other up, not tear each other down. So, when you're talking about your husband or wife, stop and breathe and be like, okay, would I want them to say this about me, or would I want them to hear what I'm saying? And if the answer is no, shut up. Stop talking. And I know that's easier said than done, but shut up.
Yeah, and the other part of it is say you go to vent to somebody. Pray before you go vent to somebody. Ask God for wisdom before going to anybody else, because once you invite God into your heart and how you're feeling, He can change something without you even really noticing it.
Exactly. And, ask Him for the guidance of, is this the person that I need to be talking to get advice from? Because so many times you have friends or family who don't believe in the value of marriage.
Correct.
They believe in the value of the world, and they believe in, well, if you're having all these issues, just throw away your marriage. So, asking God, is this the right person that I need to be getting advice from?
Well, and I'll call back the joke that I made the first episode. Welcome to Missouri, where marriages are temporary and temp tags are permanent.
Unfortunately, yeah. And make sure you brag about your spouse to others. That way, if you are venting or seeking advice, be like, look, he or she is you know, working 40 hours a week and coming home and cooking and cleaning and doing all this, and or, you know, they've done this or they've done that. Make sure that you're talking positively about your spouse. You know, if you're in that vulnerable part of life.
And it's not just everything you do around the house as well. Like with, in your case, you know, when you were at Hyundai selling 25 cars a month, I'm like, look, she goes to work, she kills it at work, and then she comes home, and if we're not doing anything, she's helping other bariatric patients along their bariatric journey, so she's putting in work even when she's at home.
Yep. I mean, and same thing with you. Like, I know that Ford tore you down something fierce.
Oh, God,
and, you know, they come to me, like, because I was really good, decent associates with the managers that you worked with. How one of your managers hired me at Hyundai before he would, you know, got over to Ford, and they'd be like, why can't your husband be like you? Well, because he's not me and I'm not him. Like, he's still coming in and making the phone calls. I was like, I know you guys don't have to be up his rear end to make his phone calls or send out his emails or send out his text messages. I said, sometimes this industry isn't for everybody, and that's the running joke in the car industry is, you know, this isn't for everybody.
Right.
I said, and while selling for you may not be for him, you know, he is putting in more of an effort than most of your other guys. So stop ragging on him and look at what the effort he's putting into it. And I know I've talked to him since you've left, and I make it a point to be like, you know, y'all said he wasn't going to make 100K. Well, he just hit 115. You know, I make sure to let them know, you know, just because he didn't work here doesn't mean that he doesn't where he's at. So they are very aware over there at Clement Ford that you are doing really well at AAA.
That's good.
Because that was the frustrating part for us, because they would pin us against each other.
Yep.
We worked for same company but two different brands, but they would pit us against each other. And while fun competition is fair.
Correct, but you got to look at the realization of it. I was selling Fords, brand new cars at $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, and you've got a $25,000 brand new car option that I don't have. It is not the same.
Correct. And while we didn't have the same money value, also we didn't have the same opportunities either, because I was house mouse. Like, I was given the house deals. I was given deals that nobody else was given, where your fate was in somebody else's hands. Like,
yeah, they're trying to get me to sell hail damaged cars that should have been totaled.
Correct. So, you know, make sure that you publicly brag about your spouse, especially when you have people that are trying to tear them down.
Absolutely.
Keep a lot of your issues private.
Yeah, I was going to say there are things that need to stay in a marriage. It's not just what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's what happens in a marriage a lot of times stays in a marriage.
And
doesn't need to be the world. The world doesn't need to know about it.
Correct. And, you know, the whole what stays in Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, I kind of brought you home.
Yeah, so well, and, you know, except for the gonorrhea. That comes back with you, too. Okay, that is a line from The Hangover. Come on.
But, you know, and this is something that I struggle with, because I look to your mom a lot for guidance, more than I probably should on some stuff. And there, you know, and then when she gives us our advice that we don't agree on, we're like, oh, I wish that she didn't know this. Well, that's, you know, my fault or your fault, because we go to your mom a lot of times for guidance, and it's something that we're working on. We've gotten better over the last couple months of
absolutely
keeping stuff to ourselves.
Keeping things in-house.
And again, not that his mom gives us horrible advice. She gives us great advice. Just sometimes it's not what we agree with. And I know I've gone to my mom for advice, because my mom's been married. My mom and dad have been married just long as, a little bit longer than your parents, but around the same time frame. You know, and I know I used to go to my grandparents for advice a lot of the times.
Well, yeah, because that was a 50-plus year. That's a wealth of knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't think that they struggled and overcame things and overcame adversity over a 50-year marriage. Yeah, okay.
And the biggest thing that my Fafi used to tell me all the time is, you need to go talk to him. You need to go talk to him about it. And I was like, but I don't understand. He won't understand me. He's like, he's your husband. He will understand. And boy, do I miss his advice.
And the other thing is, I mean, this isn't applicable to everybody. I know that there's not going to be these type of people in everybody's situation. But if you can surround yourself with other God-fearing couples, the saying you are the top 5 people you hang around with, it is absolutely true.
And we've gotten lucky. We have that with, obviously, Tim and Renell. We have that with Jessica and Reed. And, you know, we've been doing more stuff with them lately than we have before. And it's just, it helps a whole lot when you have those godly people that are there to encourage you to keep your covenant with God and not walk away. And, you know, I confided in Jessica when we went to Elevation Worship. We sat in, after the concert, we sat...
you sat in the parking lot long enough, the cops showed up.
Yeah. He's like, what do you guys do? Calm down. I work at this dealership right here. We're just, we're having a conversation, you know? So that was the kick of the night. But, you know, she gave me some sound advice on, you know, how to make it work and stop looking to the world for advice. So, you know, Jessica helped a lot, and I know I helped her with some stuff that night, but it was nice to have somebody, because again, Jessica's one of those that we've known for years. God. And there's a lot of things that me and her have in common. You know, this is both of our second marriages. We're on the bariatric journey together. You know, we're in the walk with Christ together. And so getting to talk to her that night, I know you were a little hurt that you didn't get to go to Elevation Worship with us that night, but I think that it's something that me and her needed.
And that's what I eventually wrapped my head around it. I was like, look, if I was meant to be there, I would have been there. You know, they're coming back. It's not like it's the only time that he's going to be in St. Louis.
Correct. They
have a charter here in St. Louis. So,
you know,
I mean,
there's one close enough in Illinois we can go to next year. I saw the concert tour for next year, but that's, you know, that night was a night that me and Jessica needed. Yeah. On a multitude of things. So getting to surround myself with her and her with me, and, you know, it was helpful a whole lot. Proverbs 31. You know, this is where they talk about the virtuous woman, and let me tell you, I'm not a Proverbs 31 wife by a long shot. I try, but Lord knows I am not a Proverbs 31 wife through and through. Some of it, yeah, where, you know, like in verse 11, it says, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain, and she does him good and not harm all the days of her life. And so that hits hard for me, because when I get frustrated, I don't always come talk to you first, and I don't go to God. I go to your mom, and that's not who I need to go to. But your mom also knows that the love that I have for you and that I've had for you for 28 years, like, that hasn't changed. Like, it's just gone differently, you know? So that's something that I have to work on, and that I'm working on a daily basis, and I'm getting a little bit better at here and there.
Yeah, I mean, your words have the power to shape how others see your spouse, how you see them too. The more you speak life into it, the more life you're going to see in your relationship. And since we've hit that, I hate using this term now that there's an entire movement around it, but since we've hit that turning point,
yeah,
it's been night and day.
It has. I mean, we work together a lot better. Our communication's gotten a lot better.
We sympathize with each other. We don't try to overpower each other in a conversation.
Correct. And and we, like you said, sympathize, not empathize, because empathy is something completely different, and something that we don't fully understand, because when you say, well, I empathize with you and I know how you feel, no, you don't. Because you're not in my brain, you're not in my heart. You sympathize with me because you've been through something similar, but you don't, like, and vice versa.
And that's the big thing that, like I said, since the turning point, when we have those difficult conversations, I'm not looking at it through just solely my perspective anymore. I'm trying to view it through your perspective as well, so that way I have a greater understanding of where you're coming from.
And vice versa. And that's what you have to do with your spouse. You have to try to see it from their point of view, because we, as men and women, we see things differently. Where you see it logically, I see it emotionally, and sometimes that you have to reverse that. Sometimes when you're trying to look at it emotionally, once you push those emotions to the side and you look at it logically, and vice versa, you look at things logically, well, you got to put that logic aside and see where my emotions are coming from, because that's just how God wired us.
Well, and it took me 10 years to figure out that when I think logically, I can't just take emotions and toss them to the side to solve a problem logically. I have to recognize where you're coming from emotionally, understand where you're coming from emotionally. That way we can talk about the emotional significance of it. And once we agree on the emotions, then we can go back to the logic.
Correct. And I have to do the reverse. I have to stop looking at it emotionally, and I have to start looking at it logically, because then that helps me understand where you're coming from. So then we get the emotional side out of the way. And out of the way is probably not the right word, but we
set it aside so it can
look
be addressed
at the
after we figure out the logical side of things.
Correct. Matthew 12:34. I'm like, I don't even know what verse we're looking at. Says, "For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." Sorry, our dogs are out there playing. We didn't want them in here today. So, if you want your words to change, you have to change your heart too.
Yeah.
Because if your heart is still angry and full of resentment and full of discontentment, your words are going to say the same thing. Or when you try to speak those words of encouragement or patience and love, but your heart is angry, those words are empty words and they mean nothing. So make sure that, you pray and you keep God in the center of your marriage, like you need to. So that way your words can continue to reflect the positive of your covenant that you set with God.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we're very similar in that aspect. What my face and my mouth doesn't say, my body sure does.
Yeah. And I mean, I have what I call RBF really bad, and I'm the nicest person in the world, guys. But my face says otherwise sometimes. But I promise you, sometimes that RBF I've got going on is because I'm in deep thought about something that I need to correct before it comes out my mouth. Because if it comes out my mouth, you can't take that back.
Yeah. So you got to let your words reflect your covenant. You got to speak love in public, speak honestly in private, and speak prayer over everything.
Yep.
Public, private, prayer comes over with everything. Yeah.
And when you're having that honest conversation at home, try not to be spiteful with it, because that's not going to help the situation at all. So even how you talk about your spouse to others also has to reflect how you talk to each other.
Yeah.
Because we know a lot of people will spew hatred at their spouse and expect their spouse to
go out in public and act like everything's okay.
Yeah. And that's hard to do. And I had to do it. And, because at one point, the boy that I dated before you, he would beat me and berate me and tell me that I was worthless, and then we'd have to go out in public or over to his mom's house, and I have to pretend like I didn't just get the beating of a lifetime before we go out there. So we know that it happens, and we encourage you to, you know,
I was saying, in that particular case, you need to say the quiet part out loud to the public to help get yourself out of that. And that is the caveat to this entire conversation that we're having. If that is indeed the case and what you are going through, shout it from the rooftops when you're in public.
Exactly. Because that's not how God designed your covenant to be. God didn't design your covenant to be abusive or angry or volatile. And so if you need that help, please reach out to us. We will help in the best way that we can. Don't hide the abuse. We'll be here to help the best we can. Because I've been through it and I know what it's like, and I know that it's easier said than done to get out of it. And I'll tell you, prayer to God works, because I prayed to God that if he got me out of that situation, I would do whatever he called me to do, and he put you back into my life when I needed it. And trust me, I reached out to people that always said, I'll help you do anything. And one who said he loved me, when I told him, I got every excuse under God's green earth as to why he couldn't come get me from that situation. But then it took me a minute to tell you, but you got to witness it. And, God answered my prayer, and, we got married and we got 2 boys out of it. And now you're helping you guys. And so, I definitely upheld my end of the bargain of I'll do what you tell me to do.
Yeah. And, this was definitely not on the agenda of things that we thought he would want us to do.
No, here we are. So, like we said, prayer, we're going to kind of wrap up today because I don't think we have a whole lot more to go over. But
no, I mean, got a little heavy there at the end, but you know what?
Oh, and next week's going to be just as heavy, because next week we're talking about healing from the trauma of past relationships in your marriage. And
well, we gave you a little sneak
peek of next week. So speaking of prayer, before we kind of wrap things up, we'll go to God in prayer. And this one's perfect. We have a book that I ordered called The Marriage Gift. It's 365 prayers for our marriage. And this one kind of works perfect. It's called Words Matter. So, dear Lord, thank you for the ability to articulate our thoughts and feelings. Thank you for the way our communication has grown over time. And please continue to help us get better at sharing our words with each other and others. Slow down our thoughts so that way we can consider the impact of our words. Lord, remind us every day that our words influence each other and others. What we say and how we say it matters significantly. Our words are powerful. Make us a couple who uses our words to edify and uplift not only each other, but the other people that are listening, and bring you all the glory. And as we share scripture with one another and others, may your power of your word strengthen our faith and encourage our relationship. Holy Spirit, please help us to know how to affirm each other, especially when the need is the greatest. Lord, please help us not to be critical of each other, but rather to help us communicate clearly in love and respect. May we bless each other and honor you with our words every day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. Well,
thanks for joining us today.
And we will see you guys next week
when we talk about, like I said, healing from the trauma of our past relationships, because that topic, it'll be pretty heavy, because when you bring the trauma in, you've got to make sure that God's at the center.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. We will see you guys next week.
Love y'all. Bye-bye.